My ex left me with our kids and a note that said, "I'll be back in a few years." 6 years later, she came back to find out I had already divorced her. My ex-wife, Vanessa, and I were married for over 14 years. We met in high school and got married quickly. So, we never really had much time to explore the world. But honestly, I thought that was fine because we had each other. We even had 2 kids together. However, she always wanted a bigger and better life, and she never hid that. Vanessa spent almost all our savings on expensive clothes for our kids or the latest Chanel handbag for herself to impress the other moms. At first, I thought it was cute, but she lost control. I could barely pay the rent on time and told her to stop doing this all the time. I guess she couldn't take it anymore because one night, I woke up to a letter on the bed saying I was holding her back from achieving her dreams and that she had found someone she could explore the world with in the way she'd always wanted. At the end of the letter, she wrote that she'd be back in a few years and that we could pick up where we left off. When I read the letter, I started calling her nonstop and even had our kids call her too, but every call went straight to voicemail. I had to explain to our young children that mommy would be gone for a while, and they were so confused they asked if she was dead. I didn't even know what to say, but to me, she was dead. It took me months to adjust to being a single father, but once I did, I started feeling a sense of relief. I no longer had someone constantly asking for money to buy things that would drain all my savings. I also didn't have a wife who refused to give me affection if I didn't buy her gold earrings at the mall. My kids started adjusting to the situation too, despite their despair when she left. Now, I had so much more time for myself and managed to earn enough money to become financially stable. A year after she left, I decided I couldn't handle still being married to her. So, I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. Since she was missing, the divorce was granted automatically. I sold our house and found a charming cabin in the town I had always wanted to live in, but couldn't because Vanessa said it was too rustic. I felt like I was living in a constant state of happiness and started truly loving myself. For the first time, I didn't feel suffocated by complaints or the feeling of never having enough money to please Vanessa. I felt alive. By the 3rd year after she left, my kids no longer mentioned her name. 6 years had passed since Vanessa left our lives with that letter. One quiet Saturday morning, as I sipped my coffee on the porch of the cabin, I heard footsteps on the trail leading to the front door. My heart tightened when I recognized her silhouette, wearing an expression that was a mix of determination and regret. She had the same confident smile she used when she wanted something. The problem was, I already knew exactly what she wanted, to pick up the life she had abandoned. But this time, I wasn't having it. Vanessa didn't seem to notice my initial resistance. She smiled and said, "Hello, darling. I'm back as promised." Her audacity left me speechless for a moment. I looked her over, noticing that she still wore expensive clothes and flashy accessories. It was as if she hadn't learned a thing during her years away. On the other hand, I had changed. A lot. "Vanessa," I finally said, "what are you doing here?" She paused dramatically, as if waiting for me to embrace her or show some emotion. When I didn't, she replied, "I said I'd come back, and here I am. We can pick up where we left off like I wrote in the letter." I almost laughed at how absurd that idea was. But instead, I looked at her coldly and said, "You think you can disappear for 6 years, leave everything behind, and come back like nothing happened?" She seemed surprised by my reaction. Clearly, Vanessa had expected a triumphant return, not a confrontation. But I wasn't going to make things easy for her. "I know I made mistakes," she began, feigning humility. "But I needed to find myself. And now that I'm back, we can be a family again." At that moment, my oldest son, Lucas, stepped out of the cabin. He was 12 now, far more mature than he should have been for his age. When he saw Vanessa, he froze. She smiled, stretched her arms out, and said, "Lucas, my boy, look how much you've grown." He took a step back, clearly uncomfortable. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice heavy with resentment. Vanessa seemed oblivious to the impact her absence had caused. She tried to approach him, but Lucas backed away again. "You can't just come back and pretend nothing happened," he shouted before running back inside. I felt broken inside seeing the pain in his eyes, but I also felt anger. Not toward him, but toward her. For thinking she could come back and force a reconciliation as if she had the right. "Vanessa, go," I said, my voice firm. "We moved on. You're not part of this family anymore." She looked incredulous, as if I were the ungrateful one in this situation. "What do you mean? I'm the mother of your children. I have the right to be here." Those words made me explode, right? You lost any right when you left your kids crying for you every night while I tried to piece together what was left of our lives. I yelled, "You abandoned us? And I'm not letting you do it again. Vanessa tried to argue, but I cut her off. Oh, and just so you know, I divorced you 5 years ago. So legally, you're a stranger to us? Her expression changed completely. It was as if she finally realized she no longer had control over the situation. But, as always, Vanessa wasn't going to leave without a fight. You sold our house? She asked indignantly. Where's the money? I almost laughed. It was typical of her to care more about material things than the people she'd left behind. The money? I replied. It was used to raise our kids and build a new life. There's nothing left for you, if that's what you're thinking. She looked furious now, as if I were the villain in this story. That's not fair, she shouted. I sacrificed everything for this family, and this is how you repay me? The irony of her words hit me like a slap in the face. Sacrificed? You abandoned everything to chase your own dreams and had the nerve to say you'd come back like nothing happened. Don't talk to me about sacrifice, Vanessa. As she continued to complain, Lucas appeared in the doorway again, this time with his younger sister, Clara. She was 9 now and looked curious but cautious. Dad, is she leaving? Clara asked in a small voice. Yes, sweetheart, I replied without hesitation. Vanessa looked at Clara, trying to connect with her, but Clara averted her eyes. That seemed to hit Vanessa in a way my words never could. She started to sob, but I felt no pity. These were the consequences of her choices. She made one last attempt, but I was resolute. Vanessa, please leave, and don't come back. After a few moments of hesitation, she finally turned and began walking back down the trail. This time, she didn't look back. When she disappeared into the trees, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I looked at my kids, who were now standing beside me, and promised myself that I would never let anyone hurt them like that again. We deserved peace, and I would do whatever it took to protect it. The months after Vanessa left seemed peaceful at last. Life was starting to take shape, and I felt like the kids and I had found our rhythm. Lucas and Clara were adjusting well, and I managed to balance work, school, and household responsibilities. Everything seemed fine until the day I was blindsided by a court summons delivered to my door. Vanessa was suing me for custody of the children. I couldn't believe it. How could she have the audacity to do this? After everything she put us through, how could she think she had the right to take the kids from me? The absurdity of the situation consumed me. I knew that, in many cases, courts favored the mother, and that filled me with dread. Even though I had been the only one raising Lucas and Clara all these years, I feared Vanessa's ability to manipulate people with her charm. The day of the hearing arrived. I was nervous but resolute. My lawyer had prepared me, but nothing could have prepared me for seeing Vanessa again. When she entered the courtroom, I was shocked. She looked completely different, dressed modestly, no makeup with a somber air. It was obvious to me that it was all an act, but the judge and jury seemed immediately sympathetic toward her. Vanessa began her testimony with tears streaming down her face, claiming she had made mistakes, but only wanted to make things right and be part of her children's lives again. She portrayed herself as a regretful mother who had only left her kids to work and secure a better future for them. Every word filled me with more indignation. I knew it was a lie, but her tearful voice and feigned remorse seemed to be winning over the court. My lawyer reminded me to stay calm, knowing I'd have my chance to speak. When my turn came, I took a deep breath and started to tell the truth. Your Honor, I'm not here to attack the mother of my children, but the truth must be told. Vanessa didn't leave us to work or improve our lives. She simply abandoned us. I explained how I woke up one night to find a letter on the bed, saying I was holding her back and that she wanted to explore the world. I described how I spent nights consoling my kids, who couldn't understand why their mother had left them. I talked about the struggles of raising 2 children alone, juggling work and responsibilities, and yet managing to provide a stable and loving environment for them. As I spoke, I noticed tears welling up in Lucas and Clara's eyes, sitting in the audience section. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Lucas stood up, his voice trembling. Please don't take us away from our dad. He's all we have. Clara began to cry and ran to hug me, saying, I don't want to go with her. She left us? The judge seemed moved by the children's emotions, but maintained his composure. He turned to Vanessa and asked her to explain her actions. She tried to compose herself and began to speak. Your Honor, I know I made mistakes, but everything I did was for them. I went to work abroad to secure a better future. Yes, it was hard, but I was making sacrifices to come back and give them a better life. Her arguments seemed rehearsed, but it was then that my lawyer stepped in. With your permission, Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that contradicts the mother's testimony. He showed the court a series of photos and posts from Vanessa's social media accounts. In them, she was seen at lavish parties, on exotic beaches, and at expensive dinners with various men. There was no indication of hard work or struggle for her children. Instead, the evidence painted a picture of someone living a carefree life financed by others while I faced the challenges of raising two young children alone. The impact of the evidence was immediate. The judge's expression changed, and the jury murmured among themselves. Vanessa tried to defend herself, but her words rang hollow. I was trying to build connections to get something better for them, she said, but no one seemed to believe her. The judge, visibly unimpressed, turned to Vanessa. You abandoned your children for years, leaving the most challenging phase of their upbringing entirely in their father's hands while you live a life of luxury funded by others. And now you want to take them out of a stable, loving environment? Vanessa hung her head, unable to respond. The judge then addressed me. Sir, your testimony and the evidence presented clearly show who has been there for these children. Considering everything said and the preferences expressed by the minors themselves, I grant full custody to the father. Furthermore, the mother is denied visitation rights, given the circumstances of her abandonment and the emotional impact caused. Hearing those words, I felt an indescribable sense of relief. Lucas and Clara ran to hug me, tears streaming down all our faces. Justice had been served. Vanessa left the courtroom without looking back, defeated. For me, that moment marked the end of a painful chapter. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I also knew I had something Vanessa would never understand: the unconditional love of my children. And that was all that mattered. After the verdict, I brought Lucas and Clara home. The weight I had carried for all those years seemed to have finally lifted. The kids were relieved, even happy, but I noticed something in their eyes that I couldn't quite place. Lucas, usually so mature for his age, was quieter than usual. Clara, despite her smile, seemed a little distant. Over the next week, I returned to our routine. I was focused on making them feel safe and loved, but that look in their eyes kept gnawing at me. I started to realize that, even though I had fought so hard to protect them from Vanessa, I might have been neglecting something important: their connection, or lack thereof, with their mother. One night, as I was tucking Clara into bed, she asked me, "Daddy, why didn't Mommy want to stay with us?" I swallowed hard. It was a question I knew would come someday, but I wasn't ready to hear it yet. I answered carefully, "It's not that she didn't want to stay with you, sweetheart. Sometimes, people make choices that end up hurting others, even if they don't mean to." She looked at me with those big, curious eyes that were full of questions she didn't yet know how to ask. "I think I miss her," she said quietly, "but I don't know why." Her words broke my heart. Clara had been so young when Vanessa left that she could barely remember her. And yet there was a void, something I could never fully fill, no matter how hard I tried. After Clara fell asleep, I sat in the living room, lost in thought. Lucas walked past me and sat on the couch. He looked like he wanted to say something, but hesitated. Finally, he spoke. "Dad, do you think Mom misses us?" I was surprised by the question, but I realized that, deep down, he shared the same doubts as Clara. I took a deep breath and replied, "I think she does, son. Sometimes people find it hard to show how they feel." Lucas nodded, but he didn't seem entirely convinced. That's when I realized something I had been ignoring throughout the custody battle. No matter what Vanessa had done, she was still their mother. And no matter how much I had fought to protect them, I couldn't deprive them of at least having some connection with her. No child deserves to grow up without any memories of their mother. The next morning, I made a decision. I called my lawyer, who immediately sounded concerned when I told him what I wanted to do. "You don't have to do this," he said. "You won. The court ruled in your favor." I knew that, but this wasn't about legal obligations. It was about doing the right thing. I called Vanessa. She answered hesitantly, clearly suspicious of why I was calling. When I explained my intention, she was silent for a moment before responding. "You'd really do that?" "I'm not doing this for you, Vanessa," I said. "I'm doing it for our kids. They deserve to know you, even if it's just a small part of their lives." And so, we arranged for her to see them once a week, always in a public place, to ensure everything remained safe and within boundaries. The following Sunday, I took Lucas and Clara to the park we had agreed upon for the meeting. Vanessa was already there, sitting on a bench, looking nervous. When the kids saw her, they hesitated for a moment. Lucas held my hand as if seeking permission. I nodded, and they both slowly walked toward her. Vanessa tried to start with a smile, but it quickly gave way to tears. She knelt down and hugged them, repeating, "I'm sorry," over and over. Lucas stayed back at first, but Clara couldn't resist and hugged her back. I watched from a distance, feeling a mix of emotions. There was still resentment, but at that moment, I knew taking this step was the right thing to do. It wasn't about forgiving Vanessa or erasing what she had done. It was about ensuring my kids had enough memories to form their own understanding of their mother. On the drive home, Lucas finally broke the silence. "Thanks, Dad," he said quietly. I looked at him in the rearview mirror and saw a small, genuine smile. Clara was tired, but seemed more at ease. In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. From then on, the visits became a routine. I always kept my guard up, ensuring Vanessa didn't use these opportunities to cause more harm. But in the end, it wasn't about her. It was about Lucas and Clara. I still carried the scars of what Vanessa had done, and perhaps I always would. But seeing my children smile and build memories that, despite everything, included their mother, reassured me that I was on the right path. No child deserves to grow up without memories of their mother, no matter how flawed she may be. And above all, my kids knew they could always count on me because, in the end, my love for them was the one thing that would never fail.